Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities ETFs that this guy follows. I'm going to interject my financial opinions all across the board, and if you need any help, check out finding-value.com. You can use the word discount, the coupon code, if you want a discount, and that's where we talk about individual companies and how to play this big bull market and the sectors and companies that I'm accumulating for it. I have my entire purchase history in there. All right, guys, let's take a look, see what's going on. So we've got the DXY, and what do we see here? Remember I was talking about potential weakness in yields could lead to a potential weakness in the dollar. So we're seeing weakness in the dollar, down 1%. That is going to have a profound impact on the way that some of these assets get valued, especially emerging markets and potentially gold, silver, and platinum. So weaker dollar today, getting sold off. We still have another support level. We're back within that pattern of that flag pattern. 2-year yield getting sold off pretty hard here. Is there further downside in the 2-year? To me, I mean, with this momentum, it looks like there possibly could be. And really, the question that you should be asking yourself here is, how much downside do I see in yields? And what kind of impact does that have on the pricing of assets? As yields go down, the dollar will go down with it. And again, I think we could have a pullback in yields. We could pull back a good amount. I just don't know how far we're going to pull back. Obviously, those are questions that need to be answered. I don't necessarily know how far we'll go back here. I think it depends on the conditions of the market. And yields very well could come all the way back to 2.5% from being up here at around 5%. They could get cut in half. And I think that would be beneficial for gold, silver, and those asset classes. The 10-year yield also getting hit. We do have a little bit of a wick on the bottom on the daily here, so we could get a bounce. I want to see what that bounce looks like. But again, this does, to me, look like a topping pattern where yields could head lower. I just don't know how much lower and how sustaining that move will be. So that's kind of what we're trying to figure out next. 30-year yield also down, but again, we got a good bounce towards the end of this day coming on up. So there's the selling pressure early in the morning, and then the bounce towards the end of the day to create that wick at the bottom that we're seeing, and maybe we get a little bit of a bounce here where we bounce back up. And I want to see what that bounce looks like. We could very well do one of those. So that's what we're looking for next. TYX, TNX ratio. Big old bullish engulfing where we could go higher. That generally means that the yield curve could maybe uninvert. But again, we are at a very low level. And generally speaking, down here, this is a good spot with the yields coming off to the downside. We could see a repricing of gold and silver and some of these other precious metals. TLT bond prices moving on higher, but it did lose some momentum throughout the day. That's why we have a red candlestick. So it popped higher, but came back lower throughout the day. So maybe we get a little bit of a move lower like that, where we get kind of a double bottom formation that occurs. Something like that. Like we might get a little bit of a bounce back before heading higher. Gold up $6.50 per ounce. I'm surprised that it's only $6.50 an ounce. I would have thought that this was going to be at a higher level than what it is. I would have thought $15, $20 day to day. Is it being managed? I have no idea. But I'm surprised with a percent lower, with the yield curve uninverting, with yields going down, that this isn't up more than $6.50 an ounce. But that's what we're up today. And again, I still remain bullish with these market conditions. Silver up $2%, sorry, 2% today. And that still looks good to go higher. It looks really good. Some people will say that you can draw this, and this is a shoulder, head, shoulder that's developing, that we're going to get a potential break to the upside. I have kind of cleaned this chart up. It's a big cup and handle on the longer term. We do have this line that we were trying to break through. So I do think that we could potentially have more of a shoulder, head, shoulder that developed in a very short term that can kick off other larger patterns. So it looks good. Hopefully we can move on up, and I'll leave that line there. Platinum up. It looks fantastic. I think we could continue higher here, and we've broken the pattern to the upside. Let's hope the momentum can continue to push us into a much larger move. Palladium up 1.6. This is still in that downtrend pattern, falling wedge, and I don't know if we're going to break out here or later. Palladium generally does well after a market slowdown, so I think it still has time to go. I think gold's the one that generally does well under these market conditions. People flocking into the gold and silver mining companies today. Money is moving. Now, sometimes what we'll see is when people want to position in gold and silver mining companies, they try to hold down the price of the physical metal. It's like they almost don't want the retail sector to get too excited. But we've got nice, good movement here today. Let's hope the momentum can continue to carry us forward and try to eventually break this big downtrend line, where I think a whole lot of movement could potentially occur in gold and silver mining companies if we start breaking some of these downtrends. It looks good today. Let's hope the momentum can continue. CRB index down a little bit. I know oil was down some, but still looks okay. Nice little bloody nose. Continuation pattern to the upside potentially, right above support. CRB to S&P. S&P 500 took off today. Lower yield, lower dollar, pushed some stuff up. But yeah, we were down today. And again, I think we're going to go higher on this on the longer term. That doesn't mean we can't go like this, though. It doesn't mean we can't have a larger pullback in the short term. Definitely possible. GDX ripping. We ripped right through that. Well, we're right on support now, I guess. Support resistance. There we are. So that ripped higher. GDX ripped 5.3% higher, and SILJ was up 5.7%. Looking good, but we still got to break a lot of resistance areas in the area that we're in. Still in resistance. Crude oil down, but we're still right on support. So we'll see if that holds and what that looks like over the next few trading sessions. We've got TTF gas. That does look like we could potentially head a little bit lower in the short term. This is a funky looking chart here. I drew this kind of like a squeeze up. We popped higher, but then came back down. It almost looks like, that pattern that I see. Maybe we end up a little bit lower before heading higher. Nat gas still looks fine. We're just moving sideways today. 0.46% higher. I think this will eventually work its way on up. This is more or less a flag pattern. Flag pattern, or one of these pennant formations, whatever you want to call it. XOP, yeah, you know me, gotta say that there, right? This little bloody nose right underneath resistance, but I think it's going to try to punch through. So hopefully crude oil can get its act together, start moving higher. We're right below the neckline still. Let's see if we can punch through this thing. Punch through and get life moving forward. Get those accounts moving forward, because I own a bunch of oil and gas companies. OIH, so even though we had a down day in crude oil, XOP was down 0.73 and OIH was down 0.44. Not really huge selling pressure days. So OIH still looking all right. It's kind of a weird looking deal on this side over here. Lots of red. We'll see if we can punch through. I think it highly depends on what crude oil does. But we're still within this channel, and I still think that we are going to move much higher on a longer term time frame. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust down a little bit, 2.15%. Kind of an interesting read here. We sold off, but we got this wick on the bottom, which generally means it was purchased towards the end of the day. So what it did is it sold off in the beginning, and then it got brought, purchased back up. Is this a flag pattern that could potentially break to the downside? We'll find out. Would I be worried here? No, I wouldn't. I'd just be holding on, but there is a possibility that we do get a little bit of a pullback in the short term. URA also selling off 1.5%. It is a bearish engulfing. We could see a little bit of a pullback in the short term. It looks like we've got some resistance in this area that we encountered before. That's where we saw selling pressure here, buying pressure to move back up, and now we're getting a little bit of selling pressure there. So we could see a little bit of downside pressure in the short term across the board in all of these. It looks like we could see a little bit of downside. But again, guys, playing the short term is extremely difficult. And I don't want anybody to play this like, I'm not playing the short term. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. This could be completely wrong, and the next day we just rip it. So I don't want anybody to try to play the short term, because I'm not playing the short term here. I'm riding this higher. But in the short term, it does look like we could potentially pull back a little bit. TAN up 3.86%. Looks like it's trying to do something here to try to put in some sort of bottom. COPX up against resistance. Again, we got to punch back through that. We'll see what copper did today, but it's right up against resistance. Lithium up 2.62. Again, it looks like it's trying to put in some sort of bottom here. It's kind of premature to say that. We do have downward momentum. There is no reversal candlestick yet, but it depends on interest rates and dollar. Looks like when interest rate and dollar go down, the overall markets go up. These have been, I think, sensitive to that. Momentum to the downside. Again, no bottoming pattern yet, but it was up 2.75% today. So we'll see what it can put together here. SPX up 1%. Again, we are underneath a trend line though. Is this a new move higher, or are we going to hit this trend line and roll back over? We'll have to see. But there it is, a little wick. Looks like we got a little bit of resistance right where we're at. NASDAQ's the same thing. We punched back through. We've been heading higher. And I think it really likes the lower yields. Looks like we're right at that resistance line right there. Yeah, we'll see if we can punch through it and stay up above it. KRE, loving the lower yields, probably from bond prices going back up and potential more bank lending with mortgage rates coming back down, because mortgage rates are coming back down a little bit. So I bet you the banking sector and I bet you the home builders are probably going to like these lower rates. So that's up higher. And again, I think this is going to be, I think it's going to go higher. I think we're going up with yields coming back down. Emerging markets, you can see this is really firming up on the monthly candlestick and the weekly, and we're breaking through this channel here. Like I said, weaker dollar, weaker yields, emerging markets are going to strengthen because their currency is going to strengthen against the dollar. So I think emerging markets look pretty good. We've got XHB, which is also strengthening. We'll see how sustainable this move is, and we'll see where yields are going. But this is a pretty big candlestick for the past couple of days with those yields coming off their highs, 52-week highs. MU also strengthening today, 1.43%. Again, looks like we're trying to put in a little base. I'm not convinced here yet. There's no reversal candlesticks or anything, so I'm just not doing anything here. And again, the big support level is underneath us at $69, and that is still a possibility. We could do something like that along the lines of that. Copper up barely, so basically flat. I'd like to see this punch through. We punch through, I'm going to take a little bit different stance, but right now, still moving sideways. Iron ore up, but again, it looks like our momentum is about toast, and we could potentially get a little bit of a pullback here. So I would say a little bit of a pullback, and then we're going to rip higher again. That's my guess. But overall, guys, iron ore looks fantastic, and I think we'll continue higher on the longer term. Nickel down 1.8%. I wouldn't touch it. We got aluminum. Aluminum up 0.84%, bullish engulfing. That looks like it could go higher. So bullish on aluminum there. It looks good. And we're at a pretty low level of support down here, so that looks good as well. Baltic Dry Index down a teeny bit. Coal, I know, has been down. And iron ore and coal are kind of the big movers there. But I think we're going to punch through this at some point, keep going higher. Newcastle coal down 1.76%. There we are. You can also look at it from a line graph. That's what it looks like. And I think eventually we'll find our base and it will work its way up with time. But give it some time here. We're going to base out for a little bit, just like natural gas did. It's just going to take some time. Bitcoin down 0.91%. Still looks good. There's not much selling pressure up here. So it's still possible that this thing can rip it. Ethereum was up 1.6%. Doesn't look bad. Still looks like it's well put together and things aren't falling apart yet. So that's what I've got for today, guys. Thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the website if you guys like. And everything still looks okay. Just got to wait. Be patient. Things will cycle up and down. And it'll be volatile. With yields coming back down, I do think gold, silver, they look good. They look good. I like gold and silver if yields continue lower. And again, I don't know if they're going to continue lower here. We're putting in a little bit of a bounce. We'll see what the bounce looks like. Again, we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll have to make a determining factor from that. I find it hard that the two-year generally does what the Federal Reserve does. I find it very difficult to see a massive move on the 2-year unless something is really weak in the system. But it's possible. We'll continue to monitor it. We'll see what the bounce looks like if there is one. And then, again, gold and silver, platinum, those are the ones I like based off of what the yields are doing at this current time. All right, guys, that's what I've got. Well, we've got a 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time session on Sunday. So I'll see you guys there, and we'll catch you later. This is Finding Value.